Hey, welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. Appreciate y'all coming. I got a very special guest for you. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. The brother that I was able to meet a few years ago. I don't believe he remember meeting me the first time I heard him speak, but we got introduced on another set of business, and he's been an inspiration and a go-to for me ever since. So with that, Aqil, in your mind, could you introduce yourself?
My name is Aqil Ingram, originally from New Jersey, now hailing from Maryland. I, in a previous lifetime, studied in the Islamic University of Medina, the Faculty of Sharia, which is judicial law and jurisprudence. And I also had some studies in psychology as well with Thomas Edison State University. I've been active in the field of da'wah and in the field of helping people and educating people for over a couple of decades now. And that has taken me on a journey throughout the US, in and outside the US, but now we're settled in the state of Maryland.
Man, I'm telling you, man, he do justice to his resume, but we're gonna let him stay with there, right? So, Kill, we're gonna jump into this thing. We're gonna have a great conversation on manhood today, but we got some Get Made podcast questions that we normally ask, about three questions, and we're gonna jump into it. So first, any interesting books that you have read over the several months lately, or something that's even one of your favorites?
Well, you want a favorite or you want several months?
All right, man, you're right. So let's get a favorite in the last several months. How about that?
As of late, I've been spending a lot of time with the Quran. To be honest, just getting back into the review of my memorization of the Quran and things of that type of a nature. Um, and I have to rank that as a favorite as well.
Right.
But uh, beyond that, there's John Maxwell, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And on the religious side of things, there is a particular work that I've also kind of been reviewing in law called Rud al Murbi', and it's a legal text that has to do with Islamic law, particularly from the Hanbali approach to Islamic law. So I've kind of been in that space and been doing some reading on marketing as well. So kind of
Okay.
a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, um, any interesting philosophers as far as men are concerned? I'm going to stick straight with men that you may have encountered or reviewed within your lifetime.
Yes. So I would have to say two people come to my mind immediately. Actually, three. Three people come to my mind immediately. The first one is my father.
Mm.
My father has always been a very strong and influential male figure in my life with regards to education, intelligence, with regards to being independent, with regards to entrepreneurship. Throughout my entire life, he's always been an entrepreneur and has been profound in the field of real estate. And I've taken lessons from him and watching his life develop throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, secondly, I would have to say one of my teachers who happens to be from Kuwait. His name is Sheikh Salim Ibn Sa'ad al Tawil. May Allah preserve the Sheikh.
I mean,
And he is, for some of us that may not know that particular name, he is one of the leading students of Imam Ibn Uthaymeen. May Allah bestow mercy upon his soul. And he is an excellent example to me in being courageous being courageous and in making sacrifices in order to give Islam to the people. And he's always engaged with the people in education and da'wah and things of that nature. And thirdly, is actually a friend of mine. If he sees this, he may be surprised by it. But a friend of mine by the name of Kareem Abdul Salam. has always been very inspirational to me. Highly intelligent individual, very articulate, very well educated, very profound in politics as well, in several areas of our country, from behind closed doors,
Mhm.
and he's an entrepreneur himself, and has achieved much, has been well off for some time.
Wow. Well, we might have to get acquainted with him. You know what I mean? If you definitely are looking at him in that. And the last question, and this is going to pivot into our discussion today. What is your opinion and your thoughts on the state of manhood, and especially Black manhood?
I appreciate that. So we're going through a shift. We're going through a shift, and hopefully a resurgence. The time period that we're living in, manhood is definitely being challenged. Is being challenged from the perspective of the broad base of men in our society. But interestingly enough, though, we see the challenge there, but it is almost as though the challenge that is present is being orchestrated by men above that in order to keep other men in a certain position in society. Right,
Mm.
that's the way it appears from where I'm
All right,
standing.
you're gonna dive into that one, man. That I can't let you get away with that, right? You're gonna have to get into that one a little bit, right? So, why don't you expound on that just a tad, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so definitely. So the society that we live in is a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what it is. Our society as it is has been designed to be as such, and clearly is being directed in a very particular direction. And just being a student of history, nothing even conspiratorial, just
Okay.
looking at how our country has developed over, let's take the last 100 years. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say 100 years ago, we were entering into the industrial age,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a time of manufacturing things, and we were in need of people capital. We
Right.
needed a whole lot of people to manufacture all the stuff to fill our country up with things so that we can buy them.
Right.
So that in and of itself, that gave birth to our educational system as it is structured now, the school system, all the
Mm-hmm.
way through this terminal master's degree with the professional degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? And later on, as we shift into the information age, coming into the 90s, and now we're starting to get online and things of that nature, and information is moving faster,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't need as many people and as many strong men to be physical as they needed to be in those factories. And now with that, the appearance, right? The appearance is that now that control has been established, now that finance has been established, economy has been set. Now it seems to be a need to protect that from any threats. So men being men, and men not wanting to be controlled, eventually if we identify that we are living our lives in such a way that is really to the benefit of others and not ourselves, and we're not benefiting from that, this is something that may cause men to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a need to suppress that. There's a need to suppress that. So how can we suppress that?
Mm-hmm.
um, Possibly through population control, possibly through adjusting the education that we receive, so
Mm-hmm.
that we think it is better to live a life that is not quite as masculine, right? And other things as well. But we don't want to go too far off on that tangent, and I don't want to, right, take up too much of the conversation either.
No, man, you're not taking up the conversation at all, because my thought here is, you kind of opened up a couple of cans at that point. To be honest with you, but I'm gonna dig into this one, the aspect of masculinity, right? Because I'm hearing you say that it's not important for men to be as strong, and this is a mindset. This is something that's being cultivated, and this is a culture that they are now looking at as far as men not being as strong as they need to be.
Right.
So they are
In,
softening.
in this current social construct. But yes, go ahead.
Exactly, exactly. And so in this climate that we are living now, the softening of masculinity is at its worst. If you ask me, when I say it's worse, it's high right now. We got a lot of men who, from my opinion, act like a lot of women, right? Especially from an aspect of being emotionally deregulated, right? So I want you to kind of look at that and talk about that if you can, just from an aspect of that aspect of masculinity and the emotional deregulation of it.
Yeah, so perhaps we should look at what a man is so that we can talk about manhood and masculinity. And
Okay.
of course, the perspective here is an Islamic one. We
Okay.
have from the scholars of the past a scholar by the name of El Fairuz Abadi, and he has a dictionary that's referenced by Islamic scholars where he defines what a man is, and he states that a man إنما هو إذا احتلم وشب, that a man is considered to be a man once he becomes pubescent, once he enters into a state of puberty and enters into the the onset of his strength, right? That this
Okay.
is what a man is. But he goes further. He also states, وَهُوَ رَجُلٌ سَاعَةٌ يُولَدْ. He also says that he is considered to be a man at the moment he is born, right? Or in our English vernacular, he's considered to be male at birth.
At birth. Mm-hmm.
So, as Muslims, in the nature versus nurture conversation, we're going to be inclined more so towards nature than nurture.
Okay.
And he also mentions that a man is kathir al-jima'. A man is one who has the ability and has the drive, or at least his goal. He has the ability to have intimacy with frequency, right? So you find these things in him defining what a man is. And I say this because when we speak to adolescents, the teenage years, we
Mm-hmm.
have this thing in our minds that, okay, from 13 to 18, you're a teenager, and then you're an adult when you turn 18.
Right.
That's something that hasn't existed for that long. That's something that may have only existed in this way for just over 100 years or a century, a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But from the standpoint of Islam, from the point in time that you enter into puberty, you are an adult. You
Okay.
may be you're a young adult, but you're an adult. This
Mm-hmm.
concept of adolescence, we don't have it in that way. So we're going to begin treating you like an adult with adult responsibility from this point forward. It's not this thing of delaying adulthood so that we can offer you further training in indoctrination before you enter into the society, right?
Mm-hmm.
That began to be put into place, as we stated, during the industrial age, when it was a need to develop people for the goal of aiding the economy, right?
Okay.
So yeah, that's what a man is considered to be.
So then let me ask you this right quick, and I want to hit that, and then I want you to kind of drill back into what we're talking about right now, because we're talking about the industrial age,
Mm,
but it was more important in the agricultural age,
mm,
right? Especially having boys to be able to do that type of labor. And so they experienced labor at a very early age. In essence, labor then became a mechanism to be able to cultivate manhood. Did that make sense what I just said?
absolutely, 100%. I'm with you.
Okay. And so now we move from an aspect of the agricultural age and then this industrial age, which then, they want to take, especially for black men, they want to take you off the farm out of slavery and give you a tad over slavery, low wages and all this other type of stuff here. But they need the manpower, right?
Right. Right.
And so in that, you are then still talking about labor being the motivating factor for cultivating manhood.
Right.
All right. Now, that also coincides with, as you say, one coming into puberty, right? But the cultivation of it started before puberty. Now, I want you to kind of see if you can make the connection of what it is that you're telling me right now, and then expound on it a little bit more based upon the information that the scholar has in his book.
Yeah. So excellent. So what we're finding is that there is an elimination of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an elimination for the physicality of the man. There's an elimination for the leadership of the man. There's an elimination even for the man to be able to provide. So these things that typically a man would do, the either the capability or the skill sets or the need is now being taken up either by the government or by the woman, right? By design. So the more we get into machines, and the more we get into now, because we're beyond information, we're beyond internet, we're into artificial intelligence now.
Right.
So the attempt is to eliminate the need for a man to be these things. Now, but not to demerit all of this in entirety. As I mentioned my father earlier, one
Right.
of the lessons that I did learn from my father, though, that he always told me, he would say, if you learn how to work with your mind, you will always be able to provide for yourself. But if you only ever learn to work with your hands, you can only earn as long as your body can hold up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I say that not to demerit all of this in entirety, because
Right.
society does have to advance.
Right.
Society does have to advance.
Right.
However, when we eliminate the man from being a man, when we eliminate his ability to lead, when we eliminate his ability to provide, when we
Mm-hmm.
eliminate his ability to protect, when we eliminate his ability to educate, when we eliminate his ability to properly rear a family,
Mm-hmm.
well, then this makes society much more pliable to be formed to whatever is in the benefit of whoever is control of society that particular time.
Wow. And we're having this fight on a lower level, which they would call these gender wars, right?
Mm.
And everybody wants to pick and choose on and pick at the eye at the men are the protector maintainers of women, right? So and so forth, and you can kind of expound on that a little bit more. But what I'm looking at and what I'm hearing you say is that the system that is actually in play to reduce the man, right, does not even allow for him to really pick up that particular verse in its fullness.
That's correct. If we continue to just go with the flow as it is, then yes. But opportunities to do this on our own, they are well, they're dwindling. I mean, they just are. They are dwindling. But more important than the direction of our society is that we need to begin to be responsible for ourselves, and we need to begin to chart our own course
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the direction that society may be going in. We define who we are for ourselves, and as Muslims, we're going to strive to define ourselves in accordance with what our Lord is pleased with, and we're
Right.
going to strive to live in a way that is independent of the creation but dependent upon the creator. And if we live in this way, then we will be able to chart out our own course. We will be able to institute masculinity and manhood and the description of such to the extent that our Lord allows us to do.
Wow, man. I'm hearing you and I'm afraid, right? I'm
Okay.
afraid. And we're saying we're having a
What you
conversation.
afraid of?
I'm afraid that the system we don't have enough people talking like this,
Mm.
right? And the fear is that message is not getting out there, right? So it's easy to get caught in the gender war aspect. Male and female, women talk about men asking for talk about 50-50 or whatever. All this, this bottom feed conversation, right? Without realizing that there's a bigger play here that we have to really fight against.
Mm.
I don't know if we out here talking about it loud enough.
Well, to your point, and making mention of one of the men that I referred earlier, one of my teachers, Sheikh Salim of Tawil, he has a statement that I learned from him, and he would say, "La yuhimmuna adad nas, walakin yuhimmuna ajwadu adad min nas." We're not concerned with the numbers of the people, but we are concerned with the best quality amongst those numbers of the people.
Okay.
We don't need everybody. We just
Right.
need enough in order to have impact.
So as far as teaching is concerned, or what are you saying?
No. As far as establishment of life
Mm-hmm.
in a way that is pleasing to our Lord, in a way that is most beneficial to society. We don't need everybody. We just need enough of the right people. Because the idea is, if there's a bridge that needs to be built,
Mm-hmm.
then regardless of who builds the bridge, once the bridge is built, then everybody can cross it.
Everybody can cross, right?
There
right.
it is.
Right. And so you gotta get right, because everybody's not going to be out there building on that bridge, right? It's just going
No,
to
they're
be
not.
it's going to be a select few, and they're not really select. It's just people they hired, right? At the end of the
Right.
day. And so, but once the bridge is built, it's capable of being accessed by everyone, right?
Correct.
My thought here is that, I'm gonna use that analogy. My thought here is that there is a toll at the beginning of the bridge that we keep bumping up against, and that toll is the misinformation or the miseducation of men.
That's profound.
Right. And how, I know I'm asking a heavy question for you, and by all means, you can back out of that question if you need to, right?
Right.
How do we then, as yourself, myself, other people's, like, the brother that you said that, is profound, has a profound effect on you. I know, like my man Shadid, I know other brothers who are, how do we then continue to, okay, here's my question. I think I have it now. We're not formed enough. And I think that's the issue. The toll is they're not allowing the formation of people to really guide us over this bridge.
Point.
And I believe, how do we then, those select few, because it only a select few who built the bridge, but it's going to be a few who's going to be able to guide you over this bridge properly, right? Because somebody might be trying to run around on the edge of it. People do silly things, right? But what is your thought as far as the linking and the formation of those who have the knowledge and the skill to be able to lead? How can we get on a proper accord? We may not agree with everything, but how can we get on a proper accord as men? Because this is a job for men. This is a job for strong men.
Right.
This is an age where strong men need to rise.
Absolutely.
Right.
So my thought there is mobilization, and then there's organization, and I'll explain what I mean.
Okay. I'm a union man, so I know that. I know I'm a union guy. So I understand that verbiage clearly. So I want you. Okay.
Well, then for the audience, then. So
Right. For the audience. Right. For our audience. I'm sorry.
mobilization,
I,
perhaps there is some emotional orator. There's someone who has the ability to bring attention to a hot item at this point in time. So then, because we can emotionally excite the people, we can gather the people around an event, right? Some happening or some occurrence. But after we've mobilized the people, well, we go through this event, we say we're going to say, we get out our emotion, and then it kind of just dissipates. And this often happens with not always, but often does happen with, let's say, protests, for example, right?
right.
We're just
Right.
getting out our emotion, and once our emotion is deflated, then it's back to work as usual, right?
Right.
Or back to life as usual, I should say.
Right.
And so that's mobilization, and it has its
It's play.
utility, right?
Right.
It has its place.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's organization. Organization is not looking at necessarily just personalities and just events. When we're organizing, we're looking to a broader vision in order to solve a very specific problem permanently. And we're looking to put things into place in order to solve that particular problem.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're working with ideas and not just an event.
Okay.
And when we organize ourselves, yes, personalities will have their place in the organization, but the organization should not be premised upon upon the personality in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're doing this now we're building. Now we're building. And this is something that requires like minds to come together to begin to address this. But the challenge, to your point, and what we have to get past as a people,
Mm-hmm.
is that the work you're talking about is generational work. We're
Right.
talking about sacrificing 1 to 2 generations in
Right.
order to get to where we need to go.
Right.
And a lot of us either are not willing to do that, we're not willing to sacrifice our lifetime to something that we won't see the fruits of it in our lifetime, not to mention the immediate,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, so you know, so there's that, but we need to get there though, right?
Well, and you know
We
what?
need to get there.
And you know what? It gives me a thought when you just said that. Why I see now why the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi
Right,
Wasallam,
so,
he said the best generation. He described the best generations.
mm,
Right. Those his Sahabas, his companions, those that followed them, and those that followed them. Right.
right,
Because it's like there was a sacrifice that these people had to give up in order for this to build the way it needed to build, to be what, even if we're looking at Islam, you know what, 2 billion people on earth, right? It started from really a handful of people,
correct.
right? And we don't, I think that's the model. And you said it here, a lot of us are not willing to make those sacrifices right now. We
Right.
had those people who made the sacrifice as far as, and I'm talking about just for manhood at this point.
Yes.
Right? We had people who made sacrifices for the Black movement, right? Who suffered, who did what they needed to do in order for us to be where we are today,
Sure.
right? In some regards, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So, but now we look at this aspect of not being in a position of being able to do it, and I'm going to lead this into something that I'm always talking to you about, and and you kind of explained it real nicely last year when we was up at the marriage retreat.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at personalities because that's something that we have to really look at, and
Right.
we have alpha, beta, sigma personalities, and how do we organize that within this group? And first, I want you to kind of expound on those personalities and then give me your thoughts on how to gel these things together.
Sure. We speak about these things, alpha male, beta male, sigma male. We say these things. We say these things. But really, it's seen as pseudoscience. right?
Okay.
It's seen as pseudoscience.
Come with
And
it.
the reason why it's seen as pseudoscience is because not that these terms didn't exist, it's that prior to the 90s, these terms, this language was only really utilized to study the behavior of animals
Hmm.
in their natural environments.
Right.
So it's really in the 90s where we begin to see some crossover, where this terminology begins to be applied to human beings,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You find it if you want to look into the discussions, you'll find it with, for example, Al Gore when he's running for president and how the media is beginning to speak about him. They begin to speak about him in terms of being a beta male, and
Hmm.
he's going to need to be an alpha male if he wants to be the president,
Hmm.
right? You'll see it in the PUA community,
Hmm.
the pickup artist community. With
Hmm.
Strauss's work, The Game, he starts using the term alpha male. It gets popularized around 2005 forward. This kind of gets into the public sphere, and then around 2005 and '06 forward. Now we're getting on into the internet, and now we enter into this internet space, and it begins to permeate, and we have the discussion about the manosphere and things of that nature. But this is where it's coming from. This so that we know where it's coming from.
Hmm.
And from the standpoint of psychology, though, regardless of the terms that we use for it, the concepts of it are discussed in what's called um, evolutionary psychology, right?
Okay.
Evolutionary psychology. That's where you're going to find these concepts where people are drawing from, either directly or indirectly. But when we speak to the alpha male is describing a type of a man, and this type of a man is seen as a dominant man. He's seen as a go-getter. He's seen as one who would deem others as subordinate to
Hmm.
himself.
Hmm.
He's seen as one who will put others into place based on his will and needs,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And this individual typically will be found in leadership positions or role model positions,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So think, for example, it's not uncommon to see someone that may be described as an alpha male as a CEO of a company,
Hmm.
or one who is leading a sports team, the
Right.
star of a sports team, things
Right.
of this type of a nature, right?
Hmm.
Um, Leading entertainers, right? Things of this type of a nature.
Hmm.
So that's the alpha male. The
Okay.
the beta male is the opposite of the alpha male in that the beta male is one that is being led by the alpha male.
Hmm.
So because the male is being led by the alpha male, he's subordinate to him, and because he is being led by him and is subordinate to him, by
Hmm.
default, he will receive less opportunity than the alpha male does, because the
Which,
alpha
as far as
male,
shining, as far as trying to shine, or as far as trying to be heard, or in
as
what regard?
as far as trying to shine, as far as trying to be heard, as far as opportunities for income, as far as opportunities with women across the board, right?
Okay.
Popularity, right? He
Hmm.
will receive less, and the
Okay.
alpha male will typically receive more of those things, and the
Right.
beta male has to receive the scraps
Hmm.
therefrom,
Right. There.
right?
Okay.
Whatever's left over
Whatever's
after the
left over,
alpha male is done.
he get to pick. He get to pick of whatever's left over. Right.
Correct.
He get
Correct.
to
The
pick.
alpha male gets to pick of the litter,
He get
and
to
the
pick of
beta
the.
takes whatever's left over. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying he doesn't get to pick of the litter.
The beta does not get to pick of the litter, right? Following this line of thought.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing here, though, is that in order for the alpha to exist, the alpha is in need of the beta, and the beta is in need of the alpha in order to exist,
Okay.
right? Their existence is based off of what they can receive from the other, right?
Hmm.
So it's an external projection, and then there's reception based on that external projection. And because of this,
Hmm.
it becomes interesting. You have a third type, and there are more than three. We don't have to get into
Right.
the
That's
others.
more than three, right? But there are more than just three. But these three
Yeah,
are probably one of the most interesting ones of them at this point right now.
sure, absolutely. So there's the sigma, right?
Right.
The sigma doesn't classify as alpha or beta in their descriptions.
Right.
So the sigma male is one who is often carrying a higher level of intelligence, but his view of self is premised upon his own self. He's determining how he views himself, and he's determining how he views the world. And the sigma is not in so much in need of others in order to justify who he is.
Right. He doesn't need their validation. He doesn't need the world's validation.
Correct. The sigma doesn't need the world's validation.
Mm-hmm.
So, because of this, the sigma often functions as a blind spot for the alpha.
Right.
The sigma doesn't need to tell the world who he is and what he has the ability to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the sigma is often very observant, and the sigma is often looking to the betterment of society or what individuals may need and looking to fill that.
Mm-hmm.
So because of this, the sigma often has an ability to understand and to relate to others to the standpoint that the quote unquote betas become comfortable with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
But the sigma also has the leadership capability of the alpha.
Okay.
It's just that the sigma has not been in a situation where he feels he needs to explore that.
Right.
Until he does.
Until he does.
Until he does. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does it. Right.
Right.
So these are those three.
Well, and I think this is interesting, right? Because within the community, right, and here we are, a culture dealing with a subculture, and breaking off into other subcultures, right? And so the sigma, and I don't know, I don't know if I might be even wrong in trying to deal with this or say it this way, because I believe the sigma is probably more balanced than the two.
Okay.
He kind of knows himself, and he knows what he needs to do, when he needs to do it, and he knows when to lay back and when not to push forward. He understand how to push the gas and hit the brake.
Correct. He knows what he's capable of and what he's not, and he's comfortable with that.
Right? And when we have this thought of striving for this whole alpha thought, because I believe a lot of times, even in this street crime, streetwise, or whatever the case may be, we have a lot of so-called alpha influence,
right,
that really does not allow us to build properly, because everybody can't be alpha.
Correct.
Right. And so, because here I'm looking at it again, and I want to tie it in this way. If we are then looking at a system that's trying to suppress masculinity, especially Black masculinity,
right,
and then we start giving them, we feed them with this, with popular culture media, being it music, being it television, being it movies, they keep trying to tell us what it is that we are, how we need to dress. This is what it needs to be. This is how you need to do it. And they keep softening us. Somewhere along the line, the testosterone is going to come out.
It's going to kick in. That's right.
Right. It's going to have to come out because you are a man. But it's not guided properly. So then, you start trying to function with this alpha mentality and get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I look at it even in dealing with husbands and wives and things of that nature. There's this sense of dominance that men try to come across. I've been guilty of it myself. I can sit here and say that for myself. I've been guilty of it myself, right? Of running this dominance when it's really, you don't have a dominant position. You don't have the stronger hand.
Right.
Because they are giving jobs to our women. They're giving money to our women. They're making it easy for women to kind of do this, do that. Women, homeowners, they're doing all these things and really saying, I ain't really need no man, right? They know how to shoot guns. They go to gun ranges. They got ADT, they got protection around their home. They got everything that says, okay, here is the protector and maintainer. I'm doing it myself.
Right.
Now I got this guy here because I need companionship.
Right.
But he doesn't, either he's going to come in as a wimp or he's going to come in too strong.
Well, there's dominance, which often the alpha male will operate based off of dominance, but that's not the only way to navigate.
Okay.
The two ways that can be navigated that are effective, one way is by dominance, the other way is by prestige. And most people will have a preference for prestige than to dominance, because prestige requires real actual value, right? So it requires that you have finesse, not force. You have intelligence about yourself. You carry yourself in a particular way. You have decorum. You have know-how. You have soft skills. You know how to navigate people and situations. You have life experience, and you're not just basing yourself off of just brute force, right? Just brute force and just raw, whatever the brute force is. That brute force could be your physical strength. That brute force could be your money. That brute force could be the position that you have, but it's still just dominance and brute force. Right. And what happens is, even if you use dominance, and I'm not saying that dominance doesn't have a place, because it does.
Right.
But if you're only using dominance, you may get something done. You may cause people to get in alignment, but it's not out of love for you, and it's not out of trust for you. It's because the people don't have another option. Right? Whereas if we employ prestige, then it's a mutual benefit. And along with people mutually benefiting, so we're getting to the same goal, we're navigating ourselves to the same end, but there's also love that's there. There's also trust that's there. And there's also proof of experience that is there as well. And that is a longer standing, self-sustaining model.
Okay. Well, then because, again, because you have some men who feel like, in this day and age, you have some men who feel like, okay, they don't understand the aspect of prestige, because the only thing that they see the world is functioning off of is, this dominance of, if I got the money. Matter of fact, I had a professor who used to say, when in my graduate school, he used to say, "He who has the money wins."
Not always.
Right? But that was his philosophy. Right?
Okay.
It really isn't, right? But it's like, but we take that on, and you have some, even some women say, since I'm making this money, I'm doing this, I'm helping you out, I don't really have to listen to you like that.
Right.
Or you got some men who may feel like they've been cut off at the knees. I'm gonna put it like that. I'm gonna go a little lower than where I was going to go, but I'm down to the knees. They've been cut off at the knees because the women are helping them, right? Because they feel like we live in a society, we had all this going on, and in order for us to make it, it needs to be a 2-income household or a 3-income household or whatever that looks like, right? And they don't understand the aspect of prestige, influence. Because that's what we're talking about here, influence.
Correct, influence, you're right.
And so they don't have this understanding of how to engage with influence. So the only thing they know how to do is, okay, pay their way. They give him money, they throw money at everything. If she mad, go buy her something. You know what I mean? If something wrong, go pay for it. Whatever that's all we've been cultivated to know. Right. And for some of us, the money gonna run out real quick doing that.
Right.
Right. And then you're in trouble, because at that point you throwing your hands up and she looking at you like something wrong with you.
Correct.
How do we then engage men about understanding this thing of prestige or influence? How to cultivate more of those soft skills, the finesse, as you called it earlier, and these things. What is a way? Because we want people to walk away with something other than the problem that we've been discussing, right? We
Yeah.
want them to walk away with something.
Yeah, there needs to be a rites of passage, right? So
Mhm.
so in my upbringing, and I'm sure you're familiar with this in your time as well coming up, in my upbringing, we came up with something called the cotillion.
Okay.
And in the cotillion, we're taught, right? We're cultured on on manners and on manhood and how to interact with the woman and what's your vision for society and just how to be a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be again some form of a rites of passage, or just for a more simplistic word, there needs to be manhood training, regardless of how far you are into your manhood, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and I say that regardless of how far you are into your manhood, because not all, but many of the people that you're describing, that they just want to just throw money at the problem, and they're just, it's just external, right? External things, and it's not a thing of deeper connection
Right.
and influence, as you said. A lot of people like this, when we look at them, we see many of them, and particularly in our community, that they didn't have fathers coming up. They didn't
Mm.
have fathers coming up, or they
Man.
didn't have stable, cultured men around them in their lives so that they have an example of what manhood is. They never saw it before.
Mm-hmm.
So then they just have an idea of what they think it should be, and then they overcompensate for that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to begin to rebalance those scales. We have to be able to balance them back out. Go
My
ahead.
God, man. Whoo, boy. Man, I love this. I love this conversation. I ain't gonna tell you no lie, man. I'm just sitting there, just I'm full right now, bro, because I just want this conversation to be had, so we can, as you say, at least the mobilization of something can start taking place, and then we can learn how to get someone to be able to organize. This conversation is not being had in the open.
Mm, you're right. We need to have it more.
We
Absolutely.
need to have this conversation more. I mean, this thing goes to and I deal with 6 growth areas. You know,
Okay.
and explain that to you real quickly.
Please do.
Spiritually, growth areas are spiritually, intellectually, mentally and emotionally, physically and socially, right?
Okay.
These are some areas where we need to grow in and have a grounded understanding, right? Therefore, we can then start doing things from a position of influence, not getting over, right? I don't want people to think influence is scheming,
Right.
negatively scheming, right? Or trying to get over on somebody, trying to
Right.
work your thing on your mojo over on somebody, right? But we stand the influence for good, right? The
Right.
influence for growth, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we are stagnated in these 6 areas.
Mm.
Spiritually, we get caught up on a lot of the do's and don'ts versus the concepts of living,
I would
right?
have to agree with
How
you.
to implement that into our lives, right? Intellectually, man, if I can get somebody just to pick up a book, just a little pamphlet, it's my God, man, it's crazy. I can't even pick up a book now. I have to read from my phone, but
Mm.
pick up a book other than scrolling,
Right.
right? And so there's a seemingly there's a numbing, which then becomes a dumbing down,
Mm.
right? So we're not moving intellectually properly. Mentally, we're so many different stressors are on us. We don't know how to cope with them.
Mm.
And emotionally, we just are not regulated. We are very impulsive.
Mm.
Talking about men,
Right.
we become very impulsive. So we're very deregulated. Physically, a lot of us, are not really taking care of ourselves as we should. We don't go to the doctor as we should. We don't look at ourselves as we should. And we have a lot of problems that if we have taken care of those earlier.
We're not eating as we should.
Exactly.
Mm.
Man, I mean, even now I still get pushed into having to drink water, right?
Mm.
You need to drink more water, right?
Right.
We're not doing those things, and I'm a lot better than I used to be, right? But it's still an education that comes. And socially, we don't put ourselves in the right company to grow. A lot of times we the sharpest butter knife in the bunch.
I'm gonna keep that one.
I mean, really,
Right.
I mean, it's, and we really love bottom feed. I'm
Mm,
gonna be the king or queen of the bottom. And this is what we talking about men, right? And so in those 6 areas, we are having problems. I didn't even talk about money. I'm not even gonna talk about money because money isn't the issue.
mm.
If we can get these areas here, I really do believe money come running after you. You don't have to chase money.
Right. Right.
Money will find its way in your pocket.
Mm. Hmm.
I had a mentor that used to always say that, right?
Yeah,
And he said, when you have a vision, God provides the provision,
that's right.
right? And so the vision then has to be, how do we get these 6 areas together? And what I'm hearing you say from the beginning of this thing is that there has been a system that has tried to squash us even having these type of talks as far as masculinity is concerned. And we out
100%
here
correct.
stumbling. And we out here stumbling,
Right.
right?
We don't even realize that it's a system, and we busy looking at individuals in these smaller fights, and we're not looking at the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's, and really, to be honest with you, Shake, this is where I really want you to come on my show today. Really, because I know, and I hope people who are here will kind of tune into you a little bit more. I know you're doing some things on Instagram. You have a lot of things that you got going on. I hope they will tune into you a little more, because I really do believe that you have you have a finger on the pulse of something.
I appreciate you. They need to tune into you too.
Man, but I I'm hoping my crowd can tune into you, and maybe your crowd can tune into me, right?
Networking, that's how it go. That's right.
Work together, right? Because I really do believe some of the understanding what you brought today.
Mm,
If you have a thought about what's going on, then you have an answer for it as well,
right.
right? And obviously, this would be a 5-hour show if we try to get all the answers to everything that's been raised today, right? This would be, and I hope to bring you back on at some point,
Yeah, let's
right?
do it.
And to be able to have more of the conversation of how we can do something different in order to get better results,
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna get there.
Yeah, God willing, inshallah, God willing, because I do have a crowd that's Muslim and non-Muslim as well, right? So I
Right.
want them to understand, and you gave a real. I love how you explained everything that you actually said today as well, even in another language, right? And so I definitely appreciate that. So with that, I told you I was going to keep you at a certain time. I wasn't going to make you go over, no, because I can stay all day and have this conversation,
Yeah,
right?
we know you a talker.
Yeah, for real. For real. I can be all day, man, especially on something that I love, something I have a passion about, right? So I want them to be able to tune into you and let our people know what you got going on, right?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's the floor is yours, bro.
So you all can find me at Aqil Ingram, AQIL Ingram. M is in Mary. That is my website, aqilingram.com. At Aqil Ingram, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook as well. That's how you connect with me. And just so that you all are aware, one of the biggest programs that we have right now that we're pushing is called the Medina Student Boot Camp. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a student of the Islamic University of Medina. And for the first time, at least to my knowledge, we are providing the actual courses that we were taught in the Islamic University of Medina in the English language for our people at the press of a button. You don't have to go overseas. You don't have to go to a university. You don't have to learn the Arabic language. We just give it to you all at the press of a button. So anyone that has been looking to seek knowledge, or maybe you got overseas and had to come back, or you applied, you weren't accepted, we have a solution for you now. It's done. It's available. Just connect with me. We'll get you where you need to be.
Wow, man, that's fantastic. And that's something that's very much needed for a lot of people who really have the struggle. They have the wish and desire to go and study, but then, they have circumstances that won't allow them to. And here, lessons of technology has allowed this situation to kind of come forth to be able to help other people. So,
Absolutely.
with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. This has been a wonderful conversation. We want to keep this conversation going more and going on further. Please comment if you have any questions that you want to do privately. Of course, put it in my inbox. If you want to hit Aqil up, please do so, because I think he responds to things that come to him just like I do. And so we want to make sure that we have an understanding of manhood. And believe it or not, sisters, you have sons, younger sons, hit us up. We want to be able to help them as well, because again, this manhood thing, as he explained today, starts even before puberty, right? And this is something that we've been coddling our boys long enough, right? And so they need to step into this thing of manhood, and they need to start stepping into it early. I think we have some answers here for you. Y'all hit us up, and y'all gonna see us again next week. Of course, stay tuned to my 15-minute Friday frenzies. I'm always having that on there. I appreciate people tuning in to that. Of course, you can see me on YouTube.